Bernie Mac wasn't the sort of Hollywood celebrity who tiptoed around controversy or softened his edges to keep studio executives happy.
Now, so much to talk about. I want to talk about something. I have two very young children.
Okay.
I have a 3.5-year-old and 1.5-year-old, and you are now seen as kind of the master, the man who really, if you have questions about parenting, you go to Bernie Mac.
You say you got two, right?
Yeah, two
How old
kids.
are they? How old?
3.5-year-old girl and a 1.5-year-old boy.
You can't trust kids. Come on.
What kind of advice is that?
I'm telling you, you can't trust kids.
Can't trust them.
You can't trust the 3-year-old is the girl, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And let them fight.
He was raw, loud, and unabashedly real, building his reputation not through carefully crafted personas, but through the sheer force of his presence and truth. Born Bernard Jeffrey McCullough on October 5, 1957, he spent his childhood on the south side of Chicago, in a neighborhood where hardship was the norm and humor was often the best form of survival. Losing his mother as a teenager hit him hard, forcing him to hustle between various low-wage jobs, busboy, janitor, mover, just to keep afloat. But even in those difficult years, something else was stirring inside him, a drive to stand on a stage and make people laugh at the stark realities of life in a city that wasn't always kind. Comedy clubs in Chicago weren't glamorous, and Bernie started with small gigs at night, performing for audiences that weren't always looking to laugh. They wanted something real, something that spoke to their experiences. Bernie gave them exactly that. His early material was peppered with stories about his family, about growing up with next to nothing, and about the everyday hustle that shaped him into someone who refused to be quiet or polite for the sake of fitting in. He studied the comedic greats, Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Moms Mabley, not to mimic them, but to see how they took real-world pain and turned it into humor that resonated. Like them, Bernie wanted to address the issues people brushed aside, from race and poverty to discipline and respect, and he wanted to do it his own way. No sugarcoating, no pandering. By his early 30s, Bernie Mac's local following had grown. He was older than most up-and-coming stand-up comics, but that worked to his advantage. The experiences that weighed on him, loss, responsibility, the grind of daily life, gave his comedy a depth that was missing in younger acts who often relied on superficial jokes. People said that Bernie didn't just tell jokes, he preached, in a way that made you laugh, but also nod in agreement because you recognized the truth behind his words. He performed in cramped clubs and rough neighborhoods, earning a reputation for being fearless with an audience. That fearlessness led to his defining moment in 1992 when he walked onto the stage of Def Comedy Jam. Known for its notoriously brutal crowds, Def Comedy Jam was a place where many comics were booed off before finishing a single joke. Bernie stepped out, surveyed the crowd, and delivered his now iconic line, "I ain't scared of you motherfuckers." The audience erupted. It wasn't just the audacity of the phrase, it was the pure confidence that radiated from him. He controlled the room with a presence that demanded respect, then launched into routines about milk and cookies, about being fed up with disrespect, about kids who think they run the house. Audiences at home and in the venue realized they were witnessing something special, a man who was bigger than the stage he stood on. Def Comedy Jam catapulted Bernie Mac into the national consciousness, and soon he was appearing on television spots, hosting variety segments, and landing cameo roles in low-budget films. But mainstream networks were hesitant to give him the platform he deserved. Bernie was neither squeaky clean nor a caricature. He didn't fit the prototypical black comic mold that executives tried to sell, and he refused to water down his intensity for a wider audience. It was the 1990s, and Hollywood still hadn't figured out how to handle someone who was unapologetically loud, proud, and uninterested in conforming to middle America's comfort zones. Nevertheless, fans were hooked, and they wanted more than just cameo appearances. His real breakthrough came at the start of the new millennium with the original Kings of Comedy tour. Alongside Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and D.L. Hewley, Bernie traveled across the country performing stand-up to tens of thousands in arenas, an unprecedented feat for live comedy. It was clear who the headliner was. Bernie always closed the show, not out of arrogance, but because no one wanted to follow him. When Spike Lee turned the tour into a concert film in 2000, audiences who had never seen Bernie live got a taste of his raw brilliance on screen. The bit that cemented his legend revolved around his sister's kids, about how he was forced into an uncle-dad role he neither asked for nor wanted, and how discipline in his house wasn't up for debate. He didn't just tell jokes about it, he vented, unleashed comedic fury, and then brought the crowd back with playful love. Critics pointed to that portion of the film as proof of Bernie Mac's unparalleled stage presence and comedic timing. Yet, Despite that mainstream success, Bernie Mac still found that Hollywood wasn't fully embracing him. He landed supporting roles in movies like Friday, Mo Money, and House Party 3, then later in more high-profile projects like Ocean's 11, but he rarely got top billing or complex lead roles. It wasn't that he lacked range. Indeed, in Ocean's 11, he played the slick con man Frank Catton with such ease that he stole scenes from bigger names. He also took on leading roles in smaller pictures like Mr. 3000, demonstrating an ability to navigate comedic and emotional arcs. But big-budget productions often overlooked him as a bankable star, possibly because he wasn't the type to charm talk shows with mild stories or bland jokes. Bernie's comedic style was rooted in reality, sometimes painfully so, and that made the powers that be nervous about marketing him to middle America. All of that changed for a moment when he ventured into television with The Bernie Mac Show in 2001. The show depicted Bernie's life as an unwilling but dedicated guardian of his sister's 3 kids. It broke sitcom conventions by letting him address the camera directly, sharing his unfiltered frustrations. It had no laugh track, no squeaky clean moral arcs. It was a comedic but truthful look at the challenges of raising kids, especially when you don't want to be the nice guy. Bernie brought to television the same rawness he brought to stand-up, only toned down just enough to pass network standards. The show won multiple awards, including an Emmy and a Peabody, with critics praising the way it balanced humor and real-life issues like discipline, respect, and community responsibility. Still, behind the scenes, tension brewed. Network executives appreciated his ratings but wanted him to dial back the intensity or soften his tough love approach. They feared that some of the audience might be turned off by his directness. Bernie refused. He believed if you sacrificed authenticity to appease everyone, you'd lose the essence of what made you special. That determination to stay real wasn't a strategic career move, it was simply who he was. The Bernie Mac Show ran for 5 seasons, becoming a beloved staple for many families who related to Bernie's comedic yet deeply heartfelt take on guardianship and tough love. What many fans didn't realize at the time was that Bernie Mac was fighting a personal battle against sarcoidosis, a rare inflammatory condition that mainly affects the lungs. He kept his health problems mostly private, not wanting pity or special treatment. He continued filming and touring, pushing his body to keep up with the demands of a career that never slowed down. In 2008, complications from pneumonia, worsened by his condition, took his life at just 50 years old. The entertainment world was stunned. Tributes poured in from every corner, with celebrities openly mourning a giant who'd been taken too soon. Barack Obama, then a senator from Illinois, expressed his condolences, highlighting how Bernie Mac spoke truths that resonated across lines of class, race, and politics. His death struck a chord because Bernie Mac represented more than a comedian. He embodied a voice that refused to be tamed, a man who dared to be raw in an industry that loves polish. Younger comedians, Kevin Hart for instance, often cite him as a template for how to be fearless on stage. Tiffany Haddish and others reference the matter-of-fact style he used to break taboos. In social media communities, Bernie's clips go viral regularly, especially those about parenting, bust their head till the white meat show, or about dealing with disrespect in the real world. People share these clips because they see themselves in Bernie's straightforward approach to life's dilemmas. He wasn't trying to be a role model, but he became one by being transparent about his flaws and frustrations. Hollywood, for its part, still seems to struggle when it comes to celebrating Bernie Mac's legacy. Yes, they pay respects when asked about him, and major actors and producers speak highly of his comedic brilliance. But it's telling that the film industry never gave him the top-tier movie stardom that some of his contemporaries enjoyed. Perhaps it was the system's failure to know how to present a middle-aged black man who didn't do mild humor, who refused to compromise, and who insisted that the audience handle his truth. Or maybe Bernie Mac simply wasn't interested in jumping through the usual hoops. He wanted to do it his way, relatable, rough around the edges, and above all, honest. Though he's been gone for more than a decade, Bernie Mac's presence still looms large. Reruns of The Bernie Mac Show remind viewers of a sitcom that dared to be different, tackling issues of child-rearing and family dynamics without sugarcoating. Viral stand-up clips prove that even a short snippet of Bernie's routine can outshine entire specials from lesser comics. His comedic DNA is visible in the works of Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and many others who prize authenticity over universal appeal. He left behind a world that still wonders what more he could have accomplished if given another decade or even another 5 years. Would we have seen him step into dramatic roles, or perhaps even direct? Those questions remain unanswered, lingering around a man whose echo, as he once put it, will never die. In the end, Bernie Mac was that rare figure who appealed to the everyday crowd without pandering. He was direct but not cruel, loving but never saccharine, and always unapologetically real. If Hollywood found him difficult to handle, perhaps it's because they're used to shaping stars to fit their mold. And Bernie Mac had no interest in being molded. He was busy telling the truth as he saw it, about family, about race, about the hustle, and turning that truth into comedy that could make you laugh and squirm at the same time. In a world that often encourages us to keep quiet, Bernie Mac roared, he made us see that laughter isn't just entertainment. It's also a statement of who we are and how we survive. For that, we'll always remember the king who wouldn't bow to the system and whose voice still resonates loud long after his final set.